this in understanding disability, but not really in the aspect that you would probably imagine, but we are taking our foot down to, you know, learning institutions and generally institutions that we have around. And for the longest of time, there have been complaints as to how some of the students, you know, with disability are treated in respective institutions that they study in. It's even worse to note that there are a couple of things that we probably have not been keen on as a society, as a country, in terms of making sure that, you know, the grounds are safe and are friendly for them to be able to have, you know, a smooth experience of learning. It's even worse that you find that there are certain institutions that where you will find these persons with disability directed to. That then would mean they are being locked to what it is that they would look at as their own dreams, in the sense that, well, one would want to go to this institution, but because it's not crafted for that, then they are not allowed to proceed to this direction. And therefore, for this particular conversation, where we talk about disabled faculty experience, marginalization, and microaggressions that they experience on a daily basis, well, it's important that we have this conversation. And moving forward, we just get to understand what, as a people, we're doing to make sure that this is a game of the past, or what options are there to make sure that at least these students are equally experiencing, you know, learning as any other student would experience. And I mean, they do not feel like, yes, they have been left out, they have been marginalized. Right at the level of, you know, primary school, nursery school, today we speak of special students, and they have been given special treatment. And for that reason, we say this should go all the way up, not because they are less of human beings, but because we're trying to make the grounds favorable to them. Having this conversation with Dr. Becky Sanda. Dr. Becky Sanda is a lecturer in disability studies at the Kenyatta University, and it's important that then she joins us to tell us what more is being done to make sure that the ground is favorable for students with disability. It's a pleasure to have you this morning.
Thank you, Linda, for having me. I'm also very excited to be in the studio this
Thank
morning.
you so much.
Thank you.
It's not a new conversation. I remember, you know, back then when I was still young, having had the privilege of growing up in an institution or a learning institution. My parents used to work somewhere in Kenyatta University. I had this conversation, you know, where of course we could even consider rooms and, you know, buildings that were actually being set up, you know, with the consideration of students with disability. But years down the line, it appears like we've not made so much gains in terms of making sure that at least these students are able to enjoy the privileges that they're supposed to enjoy, to have a learning experience like all these other students. Why is it so?
Thank you, Linda, for your question. I wouldn't say that we haven't made much gains, and also I also think it depends with the measure. But disability is an emotive subject, and depending on where you are watching disability, like which eagle's eye you are using to watch disability, sometimes it is miserable. Sometimes it's pathetic, but that is not always the case. The case in point, like you've asked me, where is there not something visible regarding persons with disability? Probably it would be correct if I used my own institution, Kenyatta University. Kenyatta University has made strides, I think, like from probably the years, if you were in the university several years ago, let's give a period, for example, 10 years ago in Kenyatta University, and then you come present at Kenyatta University now, a lot has happened on students with disability. For example, there have been more students joining the university. At least in Kenyatta University, we have more different categories of students joining the university. For example, we do have more students outside the typical or traditional disabilities. The traditional disabilities we are talking about are hearing impairment, physical impairment, visual impairment. Outside that, we have had other disability students coming with mild intellectual disabilities, students coming with cerebral palsy, students coming with more challenging disabilities in the physical area. However, there can be space for improvement. the university still has tried, like, let's take, for example, when a student arrives in Kenyatta University, how do they arrive? It starts all the way from high school. In the high schools, there is a form that is sent in the high schools, and I think that's what I would like to emphasize on, because I am aware that very many people do not know how students with disabilities end up in the universities. So, for example, a student has challenges in high school. There are different types of disabilities, and I'm hoping we'll get an opportunity to talk about them. Like, for example, we have disabilities that are not known to people, like specific learning disabilities. Okay. A student has problems with writing, handwriting. You see, that is yes, it is a disability. A student has a disability in listening. They cannot be able to listen properly. Okay. We have disabilities in comprehension. We have disabilities in pronunciation. So all these kind of disabilities, if they can be harnessed, like now in high school, when the Kenya National Examination Commission sends this form, then the head teachers advise the students with disabilities that they can be able to fill the forms with the help of their teachers, so that now when their results are going to be monitored and evaluated, then they are recognized that they have disabilities. Okay. But this is not known. This is not known. So you see, at Form 4, we are likely to lose very many students who would otherwise be in the bracket of disabilities. Okay. But that notwithstanding, Linda, it doesn't start there. Students or children are supposed to be assessed. You see, there needs to have been an assessment, like you mentioned, from preschool, Linda. That when a mother gets a child, and if the medical institution or facility that she gets her child that does not recognize or realize that the child has disabilities, of course, for many reasons, not necessarily negligence, no. Probably the disability will come to manifest later when the child is growing. So for one reason or another, for example, Linda, hearing impairment, it's very difficult to know that a 0 to 3 has deafness. Yeah, you see, that is likely to manifest in school. Probably the parent will not see it very well in early years. So when they reach preschool, when the teacher gives instruction, then they will realize there is a mess somewhere. For example, calling a child, Jane, would you stand up? The child will not stand up. Jane, we are going out for PE. The child will not follow the rest because they did not get that instruction. So probably the child has hearing loss. We are saying probably because now we need assessment. So it is at this level that the preschool teacher, and that is what we are trying to say outside here, that our teachers, even if they have not come to our classrooms to learn about disabilities, but when we realize that a child has different markers, a child who does not listen well. But you see, for us teachers, sometimes we make a first assumption, rude child. You see, disobedient child, troubled child. But probably have we asked ourselves, maybe the child does not hear. So we need an assessment. So we propose at that level, at preschool, that we go back as classroom teachers to our head teachers, and we request for a meeting with the family, and then we come and talk to the families and request that they do take their child for assessment.
How can we handle this? Well, upon assessment, and it's declared that, well, or this child has some level of disability. Then one would want to ask, and I mean, we have had these classes where we say it's for special children. I don't know how best we can approach this without causing, you know, that feeling of, well, I am being stigmatized, that feeling of I am different, I am of less value than the other person, as opposed to the clarion calls that we've had constantly, that, you know what, we keep reminding them that disability is not inability. But reality is that it becomes very hard to root that out, especially when you have to segregate, especially when you have to give them special treatment in comparison to the others.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda, for that question. I was hoping you would bring it up. And I'm also hoping that by the time we end this conversation, that we don't make disability look like so miserable, and that actually the way traditionally it is looked at. Now, we will go back to the assessment. We have to start somewhere. we let's call them Mr. and Mrs. X.
Okay.
So Mr. and Mrs. X are called to see preschool. Let's call our school C preschool.
Yes.
And this is Mr. and Mrs. X. They are happy, jolly family. This is their firstborn son or daughter, and they are very excited about their child. And here is the preschool teacher calling them one morning.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. So-and-so. Good morning. Could you please visit us? Of course, they will gladly come. They are firstborn, they are vibrant, they are excited. They've taken them to the state-of-the-art preschool and they are very excited.
Right.
Would you join? The preschool teacher meets them, and we're just creating a scenario. And then ushers them to the head teacher's office. And they are very excited because they are you know what they're expecting.
Yeah.
So how is our little mister doing? How is our little mistress doing? And they are very excited. But when they look at the head teacher's face, because you see of what you have talked about,
yes,
already the head teacher has started internalizing pity and pity. Already the head teacher and even the classroom teacher, the preschool teacher has already started it.
Yeah.
It has already started straight away. So they are thinking maybe their little mister has just had a terrible accident, or his teeth has fallen off, or he has crashed his head, or he has messed up a little child.
Right.
But when the head teacher receives them and they do not even have the professionalism of breaking the news to them. Because first of all, I need to make a correction. It is not the role of the head teacher and the teacher to let a parent know that their child has disabilities. Let's make that correction.
Yes.
Theirs is to propose that we have been working with your child, and after working with your child, we have found that probably your child looks to have exceptional abilities. We are proposing that probably we could visit, or you would visit, an assessment center. And sometimes if the teacher is friendly, can accompany the family because it's traumatizing. So that when they go to the assessment center, they'll find people who are professional to be able to guide them through the process. But like you've just mentioned, Linda, something goes off immediately. The first trigger, negative trigger, goes off. Like, your child cannot learn. He cannot read. He cannot write. We think he can't see. We think he's either dumb or what. You see, that's how it starts.
Yeah.
Try to imagine that. So do you think Mr. and Mrs. X will go to the assessment center after that experience? No. They carry their child and move to school D.
To figure out whether they can be accommodated.
Yes, very good. In case that school will find something else. So they change the schools. So most parents with children with disabilities are likely to go to school 1, school 2, school 3, and school 4.
And this drains the child as well.
And the parents and the resources. You know how it is costly to take our children to school.
Right.
And you know that if I'm talking of a parent moving a child from school A, B, C, D, it means probably the parents are able. Remember, now we have not talked about parents who are not able. Also, we have not talked about children probably going to public schools, but preschools. Are you saying? Because probably the next school is several kilometers away. Very, very, very far. But if a parent is changing, it's probably they can afford to do that. So when they reach at the assessment center, okay, I need to make a pointer here that many children are not assessed at preschool.
Okay.
Why? Because of denial. So none of these parents are going to take their precious child for an assessment to get bad news.
Okay.
So they're not going to take it. They will not take it for year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, and 7 and on. Believe it or not, Linda, they will not go for an assessment. They'll keep moving from school to school, and eventually they may choose homeschooling.
Of what damage is this?
Not even the damage, Linda. It comes to your question.
Okay.
Why do you think they do not want to go for assessment? So that their child and their family is not stigmatized.
Ooh.
That is the only reason.
That's the truth, yeah.
Yes. Because immediately they find out that their child has a disability, they have a strong belief that the stigma will start. The neighbors, the other children, the playmates, including relatives.
Which is true anyway.
Yeah.
We'll start.
Yes, including relatives, including where the child normally played, normally enjoyed, homes the child enjoyed visiting.
Yeah.
And it stops the life of a child. When an assessment occurs, most times most children's lives stop there, and their family's lives stop there, and they now start on a path of destruction.
I know you're not in that line
Yes.
of course, where the assessments will be conducted, but
Yes.
then I would want to understand.
Yes.
I mean, is there not much of counseling that is done at this stage to make the parents understand and acknowledge this, and even the children or the child, you know, I mean, to a point where it will get them affected that much?
Thank you, Linda. There is a lot of counseling and a lot of support in the assessment centers, including, you know, there are two types of assessment centers, Linda. There are medical assessments, they can be done under clinical institutions, the hospitals. We also have educational assessment centers. And all of them, Linda, you need to know, except for the private institutions, it is free to get an assessment in Kenya.
It is
Yes,
free.
it is free.
Okay.
So then why don't parents go for assessment, Linda? For example, if a parent is explained that probably the child is having a problem, that the child is having a problem, and they are requested, could you please go for an assessment? Why don't they go, Linda? It is because of our cultural beliefs.
Yeah.
It is because of, you get, how I have been raised, how I've been socialized. I have been socialized, Linda, to know that my child is supposed to be perfect, Linda. I've been socialized. My child must have the norm standards. My child should sit when others sit. My child should write when others write, Linda. My child should run when others run. My child should be healthy when other children are healthy. And that is even how my in-laws expect my child to be. Are you seeing? If I'm a mother, where I am married, it's expected that I brought forth a healthy child. And now you are trying to reverse that, Linda. You want me to go for an assessment to reverse that? You see? So for the longest period, then mothers are likely to be in denial. Point number 2 is we lack support. We lack supportive structures. Most of the times when a mother is explained gently, like probably your child may need an assessment, where do you think she turns back? To her spouse and goes home and says probably, you see, after we visited the preschool or the primary school, don't you think we should take our son for assessment? And the blame game starts. Or you want to go for the assessment because you know there's a problem in your family. Why would you agree to what that teacher is saying? My family, this is Mr. now saying, we don't have disabilities. We do not have disabilities in my family. So I know that you are listening to that stuff because your family has problems and you are the one who has brought us these problems.
All right, so has this hugely contributed into how the society then is dealing and treating with these children with disability? Because then if we are not privy to this information, to the fact that, well, disability is not just the main ones that you've spoken about, it goes beyond that. I mean, if we do not acknowledge this, if we do not know this, if we do not have a majority of people coming with these cases, then we do not focus much on making sure that the institutions are well catered for in terms of making sure that they are able to deal with these students.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda. I would like to answer that by giving a proverb in Africa. You know, in Africa we say, disability does not affect me until it comes home. So, it's not my business, Linda.
That's true.
I don't have a child with disability. So, why do you want me to bother to change my school, to make my school accommodative? Why do you want my job place to be accommodative? Where do you want the hospital to be accommodative? Where do you want entertainment centers to be accommodative? You see, I don't have a child with disability. I don't have someone bothering me with disability. So disability in Africa is not my business.
Until it comes home.
But when it comes home, Linda, and especially for our lawmakers, because we deal with some of them when they are children or their families, then surely something really happens.
And this is the
Something
most
really
unfortunate
happens.
thing,
Yes.
that even the lawmakers, it's on rare
Yes.
occasions that you'll find, someone who's just
Yes.
normal
Yes.
being channeled to that docket or appointed to
Yes.
that docket.
Yes.
It has to be, a person with disability, and that's okay. There's
Yes.
really no problem
Yes.
with that. But what does it speak in this sense? That it has to be you who has
Yes.
a problem, it has come home for you to address this, for you to understand what needs to be done?
Thank you. Linda, even before we go to the lawmakers, let's start about ourselves.
Yes.
I will still go to that. We'll keep on using family X and Y. That family we created. When they come to their house where they have been enjoying in the probably one of the gated communities in the estate, they come back. And probably they would confide in somebody that, our son is not feeling well, or our son has been diagnosed, or the teachers are saying, even before the assessment, imagine,
Teachers
how
saying,
mothers talk. Imagine the teachers are saying, our son cannot read and write. Look how handsome he is. Do you think he cannot read and write? What do you think the neighbor will do?
That teacher has a problem.
Yeah, no, she's going to amplify it for the other neighbors that so-and-so son is disabled. So that is where it starts, Linda. So after a short time, their son cannot play, because every time their son or daughter goes to play, the other children are withdrawn so that the disability does not rub on the other children.
Okay.
It starts like that. So within a short time, X and Y have to move houses, Linda. And they move houses so many times, Linda, until they almost finish all houses. Because nobody accepts them, hoping they can find a place where they can be accepted.
How then do we break the barriers in this case?
Thank you very much. One, we need to know, Linda, disability, Linda, is the only club nobody joins voluntarily.
Yeah.
It also comes at any time, Linda. A child innocently can be born with disabilities, Linda, which we call congenital, present at birth. A mother carries a child to term and is given a child to bear with disabilities. It's called congenital. Linda, some disabilities are hereditary.
Yes, right.
We don't choose, like albinism, Linda. A couple that both of them do not have albinism, because it is in their trait, it's in their gene, they can get even 25 years later, Linda. Disability can visit in form of hereditary.
Yeah.
It can be in latent form. And then, of course, Linda, there are acquired disabilities. Linda, I can walk out of here and have a fall.
Right.
God forbid I can have a motor or vehicle accident. Falls, children fall off buildings and all that. So we need to get first that kind of understanding that nobody chooses to have disabilities. Not even a mother, Linda. Who in the world, Linda, carries a child to 9 months and then says, I've chosen one with disabilities?
Nobody.
Yeah. So until that mindset, Linda, is changed, we need to change that mindset, that disabilities are here with us. And not only that, these are our children, our nephews and nieces, our brothers and sisters, our aunties and uncles, and ourselves. We could also have disabilities. Remember, Linda, there are even disabilities associated with old age. Hearing loss, visual impairment as a result of, physical impairment as a result of old age. So at one point, people do have disabilities that it's probably they are not magnified or they don't pay attention to them as for a young child. So we need a change of our mindset. And it doesn't have to start when people are older or when they get the disabilities. We need to change them from when mothers are expectant. We need to talk to mothers. We need to start the conversation with mothers. We need to start conversations even with medical centers. They're the ones talking to these mothers. Remember their antenatal care clinics. I think you have been a mother, Linda.
Yes.
Did the antenatal clinic ever mention disabilities?
No.
No.
Honestly, no.
You see? Because they are preparing you for an able-bodied child. And I don't blame them. But Linda, there are disabilities. And unfortunately, disabilities are not decreasing. I went to school many, many years ago, and I was told that by certain years, disability will have been eradicated. But disabilities have been on the increase. For other reasons, I hope we'll discuss. Disabilities are on the increase, Linda.
Right.
Yes.
And of course, when you say you hope we'll discuss, definitely then we want to understand what are some of these triggers that are there. And I mean, those ones that you speak of, those ones that we never imagined would be classified as disability, are here, are on the rise. But still, years down the line, we still are not focused much in addressing this, you know, at the umpteenth time, so that by the time one is affected or by the time it hits home, then we know how to deal with them.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Linda. Actually, I mentioned some disabilities are congenital.
Yeah.
And I need to let viewers know that that contributes to a very small margin of the basket of disabilities. That is disabilities present at birth. It's a small margin, Linda. Then the other one is hereditary. It's also a very small margin, Linda. Then you may ask yourself, what contributes? What is this big margin? Acquired disabilities, Linda. Acquired disabilities that start when a mother is carrying or conceiving a child, or even before. Now, we are living in a modern world, Linda, and many of our young girls are smoking.
Yeah.
Many of our young girls are taking alcohol. These are our future mothers, Linda. They are our future mothers. So long as you take a lot of alcohol, so long as you abuse tobacco and other hard substances, then lungs of the children don't develop. Heart defects will come in. Children with lean frames will come in. The cognitive of the child will be affected. You go to the foods the mothers are eating. Now mothers, Linda, have refused to go back to grandma's pumpkins, sweet potatoes, vegetables, the merendas and what. They have said no to that. And they have said yes to fast food. Fast food cannot develop the brain of a child. Every mother I listen today says they want their child to be smart. But how are our children going to become smart, Linda, if they are eating fast foods? You see, food that has been processed in cans, food that has been in cans for months and months, Linda, it's not healthy. Mothers are supposed to eat from the ground, fresh food, freshly made, so that they can be able to have health children, because their children are eating from their mothers. That is the other. Then the other thing, Linda, is our lifestyle. It is our lifestyle. Yeah. We don't want to work.
Well, that's the truth.
You know that. We don't want to work, so we are unfit. You know that. We don't want to do any activity, Linda. If I sit here, I will say, so-and-so, can you bring me a cup of tea? So-and-so, can you do that for me? I don't want to move around so that I don't get tired. So I'm immobile. In another world, I'll be called lazy. Of course, it's the truth. So as a result of that, I'm an inactive mother. And of course, I will have an inactive child. I'll have an inactive child. And it goes on and on that I'm likely to choose as a cesarean section for delivery. I am not going to have a normal childbirth, Linda. You see, again, there are reasons why children should be born through normal deliveries.
Oh yeah?
Yes, there are reasons. There are reasons. Medically, there are reasons. Even for us in the area of disabilities, because if a child comes forth naturally, even they are likely to be strong and healthier children that push thrust out. But when children are in a passive form, then the mothers are opened up, and then the children come. You see, we are not able to know even the lung strength, the strength of this child, the heart strength of such children. We are not able to do that. Then the other one is the kind of jobs we do, mothers being away from children, raising their children. Mothers being able to live for caregivers who are not well trained to take care of children. Have we wondered what is happening with the children when we leave them long hours with caregivers. That is also causing disabilities. What our children watch, some of the disabilities, Linda, are caused through what our children watch.
Okay.
Yes, the games they play, the people they associate with, like disabilities like emotional and behavioral disorders.
Right.
Yes, we have a disability known as emotional and behavioral disorders. Children will be watching a lot of aggression on television. I'm blaming you, what you air to the children. Yeah, so they are going to try and try that out. And of course, they'll try it in school. They'll try it amongst their peers. So as a child grows up, they are bitter, they are angry, just like they see the shows. So of course that kind of a child is going to have emotional imbalance. They are going to be very aggressive. They are going to try bullying in school. They are going to try vulgarity, the language they pick on the television, and that is a problem. We also have disabilities associated with the environment, of course, Linda. We now decided not to keep our environment clean. It's toxic. It's toxic. So the food is grown in a toxic farm, Linda. You have heard the animals now are being made to grow faster. The crops are being made to grow faster. And we are feeding the mother and the children with this food. That is a problem, Linda. That is a problem. Our water is toxic. The air that we breathe in, it's giving us, we have medical disabilities, like asthma is a medical disability. Children are now going to school who are asthmatic, Linda. Children are going to school who have blood pressure. Children are now having diabetes. All those are disabilities.
And knowing all this then, Dr. Becky, one would want to say, okay, are we hopeful that we can reverse the same? And in the event that we agree that, well, the world is moving in a different direction, times are changing, and parents are doing all that you mentioned, children are doing all that you mentioned. I mean, after all said and done, we have to accommodate these children. We have to accommodate these people or these persons, you know, with disability. So how do we maneuver around this? How do we break the barriers, like I asked earlier on? How do we make sure that they're well incorporated in society without feeling less of human beings?
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe the first is to thank you. This is the first stop.
Yes.
This is the first stop, because I think years ago, when we wanted to talk about disabilities, nobody wanted to listen to us.
Yes.
To be very honest, Linda, there are years we really wanted to talk to people about disabilities. I'll give you a case in point. Like when I started disabilities, everybody around me was disappointed.
Like,
how in the world
would you pick this?
Could you study that? You mean you can lack something to study? So I want to thank you, because this is the first stop. We need to have these conversations. We need to be louder. We need to be louder. We need to be given more opportunities. Even when we are not heard, we need to keep on talking. We need to go back, even like I mentioned, to the antenatal care. We need to talk about it. We need to talk about it in our schools, even schools that children don't have disabilities, Linda. If I go to a primary school and I go to a high school and I go to a higher learning institution and talk about disabilities, imagine, Linda, multiple effect. How many children would have listened to me? That happens. We go to spiritual places, we go to churches, temples and mosques, and we talk. And we talk. But another thing, Linda, we can do is that by starting to live a lifestyle conscious that this can happen. A lifestyle, a change, like living reverse gear. Like now, Linda, we are looking at how much we are consuming technology, including myself, Linda, at my age. I'm now using a lot of technology. And it's been giving me shoulder pains, serious shoulder pains, neck pains. If I'm not able to attend to that, you know that I'm going to be sick. I'm going to have physical disabilities index. And I'm not the only one. People are now having disabilities, Linda, even for typing, because of typing. You see, we need to be conscious. The other one, of course, Linda, is to do exercises. Because like the physical disabilities, they can be elevated with exercises. You can start exercises. We can also acknowledge my child has a problem and you seek help. Because, Linda, the help is there. By the way, Linda, disability does not look as desperate as it looks outside there. It is the society. It is the society. For example, if a family, Linda, has someone with disability and they use them for begging, that is not what we teach. It is societal. You can imagine, Linda, an able-bodied family using someone with disabilities to beg. And you want to tell me it's about disability? No, it's about our culture, it's about our attitudes, it's about our beliefs. So unless we are able, because if you believe that someone with disabilities can beg for you, can vent for you, Linda, can vent for an able-bodied family, you're actually practicing child labor and disability labor. Are you seeing? Because you know that they are going to make money out of petty and all that. So unless we are able to change, we need to change our attitudes. We need to believe that persons with disability, Linda, have an ability. Because I always say, if you know they can beg, surely then you know that they can be useful elsewhere. Positively. Yeah. So that we are able, when we receive children who are toddlers, let's embrace them. Let's take them to school, Linda, because, Linda, you know very well, including the rest of the world, we even have a disability known as deafblind. It is one of the most severe disabilities, Linda, and yet we have a professor who is deafblind. That's true. And that is one of the severest or profound disabilities. What am I saying? That then each and every child with a disability, given an opportunity, they can be able to conquer their world. But we still have few of them in the world of academia. Yes, we do, Linda. We do have professors, even here in Kenya. We have a professor who is hearing impaired. We have even our lawmakers. We have lawmakers who have disabilities. But you see now, those are a few. And also, if you notice, if we have goodwill, Linda, because our lawmakers end up receiving goodwill, then it means that even our children, Linda, if we give them goodwill, they can thrive. Because a good example, you remember, I'm sorry to mention it here, but you remember we once had a member of parliament for Embakasi, if you remember that. No, Kamkunji. Correction. And you remember he had severe disabilities as a result of an accident. But because of the goodwill, because of the enabled environment, because of the least restrictive environment that he got off a wheelchair. That's right. Is that the case for people who we don't give goodwill? Wow. You see. All right, you know, Daktari, time is moving very fast, and I mean, I love the approach to this, and I hope that we can have this conversation some more. Thank you. And if we are to have it, then my thinking would be is that we'd want to have a lawmaker here. Yes. We'd want to have those ones that have defied the odds. Yes. And you know, are out there. We are speaking of Reuben Kigame, who seeks to be, you know, the president of the nation. You know, that kind of courage and the kind of belief that people have bestowed on him is the same that would be bestowed on any other person. You know, that could be having these challenges. And so in a nutshell, as we round up, and we hope to have you again soon as possible for the same conversation, what would be your parting shots as, of course, we move forward, as we continue saying that, you know, we want to change the face. We want to make sure that at least these persons with the challenges that they have, they still can be allowed to go out there and be better persons, better versions of themselves. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Linda. In a nutshell, I would like to let parents know who have a child with disability and anybody living with disabilities that, one, they are human. That's number one. Two, they are fearfully and wonderfully made. Sometimes when I teach my students, I make them laugh and I ask them, how many of us are fearfully and wonderfully made by God? Of course, everybody puts up their hand. Then I ask them, do you think that persons with disability are fearfully and wonderfully made? You know the answer. They are not sure. But I always tell them they are. Meaning that we do not know the color or the formation or the structure of God. He made each and every one of us. Meaning that if we have that kind of a mindset, then we shouldn't look with pity on the side when we see mummies with a child with disability. We are supposed to embrace. I'm supposed to be her sister. I am supposed to walk on this journey with her and tell her we can make it. We can make it. And Linda, many children have made it. That's true. I teach in a higher learning institution and we have students with disabilities and they are increasing. They are increasing, meaning that if we give every child an opportunity, they can be able to reach a higher learning institution. From there, we are also hoping, including TV47 and other organizations, can now also receive at least 1 or 2 people with disability. Because if corporates like you employ persons with disability, outside there, what do you think the talk is? Imagine TV47 has someone with disability. Another organization, corporate, will say the same. Let's take 1 or 2, and another or another. So it's actually the change of our mindset. Disability is a change of our mindset, that this can be my child, this can be my mama, this can be my papa, this can be grandma, it can be me. And tomorrow, I can be. We always say it's the only club you sign in voluntary. And it can come anytime, because disabilities can be temporary or permanent. Yes.
You know, now I understand some more the reason why sometimes when there are jobs that are being advertised, you're told persons with disability are encouraged to apply for this. You know, one would want to question that, but it now makes so much sense. And I think in my own capacity, then I'd say the parents who are locking them out, or are locking them, you know, inside homes and all that, let them out. Let them out, because they really can go out there and learn. And let's be keen to understand if our friends, the people around us, are able differently, and you know, just know how then we can help them make the best of themselves. Dr. Becky Sanda, lecturer in Disability Studies, Kenyatta University. I'd want to say that this is phase 1 of this conversation. Thank you. And we'll have it some more. Thank you so much. At least right from the basics, we have picked lessons that we hope to take it to a higher level in terms of understanding disability and, you know, making it, you know, a game